So what we're going to be going through today, I think that it is a wildly overlooked uh, part of everybody's life that would solve a lot of problems in the world if we were really, really clear about. Um, I don't know what society has changed so dramatically about. I think it has to do with a lot of the distractions like we've been discussing. But I would safely say that the majority of people walking around um, don't have a purpose, meaning that they're going out into the world every single day, and they're living, just surviving and living life, but they have no purpose. If you ask them like what they're here for, what they stand for, what they're about, they can't answer. All right. And some of us may be in that position in our lives now. And really, it's quite easy to just see the years pass by very quickly that way, and just kind of survive and get by. And for some people, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It becomes a big problem though when you're trying to grow a business, when you're trying to have a life that's above average. And I'll tell you safely that all of the most successful people that are ahead of me in this journey, all very well know their purpose. They all are working towards something. And they've all discovered kind of what I've discovered is that finding these things is a daily thing. All right. Understanding your purpose and living towards it is a daily exercise. It's not something that just comes in one big religious out of nowhere thing. All right. And I feel like a lot of people are maybe misled with where this comes from. But I believe that we have to know that purpose and we have to live by it in small actions every single day. All right. And let's just put this into perspective. So how many people do you know that have told you, when I just get this, or if I just had that, when the company gets here, when, once the kids are gone, like all of these statements that get made. All right. And then really it's sad in a lot of ways, because you don't have to wait. And the big event never really comes. I can tell you that from, living through certain things. Like I was able to tell myself for many years that, living the way I was, which was, I mean, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, working 80-hour weeks, like just, not having a plan, just kind of being a ping ball all day and just nothing but stress and misery, that I was working towards something. I thought it would all come at once. I thought it would be just delivered to me on a silver platter, and I couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is I actually got what I was after, and then discovered that I still had no purpose. I still was even more lost and felt even more empty than them. I almost wish I never got to that point, right? Because now I not only did I not have the thing I was going after, but I'm left with the same emptiness and same lost direction, right? So what I want to go through with you guys today is really, before you take any journey in business, before you take on more, it's super important that we've at least asked ourselves these questions and we have a flexible plan for it. So one thing I can say is that, my purpose is lived on a day-to-day basis, and I hold myself accountable to that purpose. Right now, that purpose can change over time. It has, it's seen me move from being a single entrepreneur to a family man and a dad, and like my values changed, my perspective. I've slowed down. I'd rather spend more time with my kids and build a stronger connection with my kids. But even being as busy as I am, I'm not waiting until something happens to start doing those things. All right. So if your values and the way you want to see your life and the vision that you have, say that, hey, you know what? My family is really important to me. And then you spend the next 20 years trying to build a life and take care of them, but you never connected with them, you failed. You failed, and you failed yourself, and you failed your family. All right. Same thing goes if you're putting all of your energy into building a business and you've neglected every other aspect of your life. In my eyes, you failed. All right. There's no reason for that. The bigger lesson here that I really want to make sure that I'm being clear about is you can experience joy and balance and, get what you need emotionally on a day-to-day basis. Again, you do not have to wait for these things to be validated by an achievement. All right. Because the truth of it is, if you actually put in the work and you put in the discipline to get to that spot that you want to be in life, all right, when you do get there, you'll find that it's no different than where you are right now. You still have the same problems, the same issues, same struggles, same, people don't see you differently, although we'd like to think that they do. All right. Your status doesn't go up. None of that stuff actually happens. Right. So it actually happens again when we're talking about what growth is and what I see as true sustainable success. I think it comes down to a couple of key ingredients. The first being discipline. All right. Motivation. I don't know how many of you guys run on motivation, but that's like, to me, that's running on a beet juice as far as I'm concerned. And, when you need, high octane gas, the reality of it is that your motivations, they fade because they're tied to emotions. Okay. So how many of you guys feel like you're really highly motivated? What would be your definition today of motivation? Maybe you want to step into that one?
I would probably say I'm actually not necessarily highly motivated.
Okay, good.
And as a person in both business speaking and in my personal life, a lot of stuff I have to do that even just the daily day-to-day stuff is done because of discipline,
Mhm.
not motivation. When I can get motivated to do things, but it's usually fun things like motivation to go meet some friends for some drinks or go play around to golf. It's very rarely motivation to do a load of dishes or fold the laundry in the dryer,
Mhm.
things like that. So, yeah, I personally find it's that discipline, that establishing the routine and knowing that this needs to be done, whether I want to do it or not, and doing it anyway.
Right. So, would you say that you're fully in control of your behavior?
Not fully, no.
Okay. That's honest. I appreciate you being honest and open about that. I don't think any one person is fully in control, right? Because again,
Yeah.
we're misled with thoughts, feelings, emotions. Where discipline comes into play, is again, when we really break things down into where we want to go, the steps are generally pretty clear, right? We know what we more or less have to do. Now let's think of it not so much as a roadmap. I think a lot of people think that there's a direct line to success, or that if I just follow this person or that person, and again, that's an illusion. I can tell you for sure. Like, look at all the gurus out there. All right. There's whole industries built on misleading people this way. All right. And the reality is what works for one person will not work for everybody. Okay. And I can vouch for that full on. So what we need is more or less a compass. All right. I don't recommend that anyone considers it there to be an absolute, map to where you want to be. You'd have to be very again, you'd have to be very, very aware to be able to see that. I've chosen to look at it more as I have a compass, and every day I have a choice. All right. My choice starts with the things that maybe I don't want to do, but I know I need to do. All right. The things that I want to do the most. All right. And the things that I'm avoiding. Okay. When you break it down like that, and you can explain to yourself in a pinch or in the situation where motivation has faded, all right, why you're doing that thing. If you can be very clear with yourself day in and day out why that thing is important to you and why it's something we can't neglect, you're going to see that success come much, much faster. When we don't follow that, what ends up happening is, and again, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, we begin to see we begin to have a lowered confidence, right? We start to slide backwards. This is where things get undone, right? So a good example is the guy that goes to the gym, loses 100 pounds, all right, stops going to the gym, gains the weight back, all right. What happened? What changed? Well, he lost his discipline. He lost that motivation, right? Now, I know very well, like, you can go to the gym and have bad days and good days, right? We can go there and not feel like we want to be there, but it's the discipline of being there. And really where the way that I can define discipline and think about implementing this in your business. Discipline to me is that I can see the result. Like I can see if I did it, yes or no. There's never gray area, right? It comes down to those yes or no clarity questions that you ask yourself. So like, how many people do you know that exaggerate when they tell you what they've done? Oh, I've been at the gym. Oh, like it's just like an alcoholic. I only had one drink. I haven't drank in weeks. You know, meanwhile, they've been drinking the whole time through. That's a prime example of where the human brain, like, you know, it doesn't compute. It's impossible for it to calculate, like, am I actually living up to this objective or living up to this principle or this value? All right. And when we don't have a way to track and a way to hold ourselves accountable, because we're the biggest, again, if we're doing it for the right reasons and our goals are based on ourselves and what we want, not what somebody else has projected on us or what other people are pushing, but what we actually want, right? Like this is, you know, aligning your goals with your core, right? From that point, then, how do we keep ourselves on track and make sure that we have that compass, that we're moving towards that goal? All right. And think about all the things that happen in our lives, all the situations that can stray us away or distract us. How do we come back to center? Right. And again, these are habits of most of the successful people that are out there, right? Is that they can focus on the things that matter the most, whether that be, again, in business and life, but they're cutting out any of the things that don't matter. And the reason they're able to cut those things out, and where other people's get distracted and brought down by them, all right, especially nowadays where everything's a massive distraction, all right, is they're aligned at the core, all right? And then they use discipline on a day-to-day basis. This is a system, by the way. Okay. No matter which way you slice it, this is a system. All right. You can't manage what you can't measure. All right. So going to the gym, why do people, you know, highly successful people all have that common trait? I'm going to say a good portion of people have it. Why do you think that is? Can you say that you're going to the gym 5 times a week? Is that an easy thing to measure? 6 times a week? Can you measure your weight? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Think about all of the things that you can track and why it would be something that someone with high discipline would want to move toward. Plus you feel great, right? It gives you energy for everything else that you're trying to do. And like I said from the very beginning, this is all about how do we get our energy? How do we feel optimal each day, day in and day out? All right. There's always going to be days when you don't feel yourself. There's always going to be days when you can give yourself excuses. There's always going to be distractions and stuff that happens. And like, that's life, right? It's unpreventable. But what brings us back to that main why and what actually moves us from point A to point B is the amount of discipline that we can implement in our lives and our worlds to keep us on track. And then below that, all right, not relying on the motivation side of things, because I don't believe, like, motivation is good to get started, but it's not going to take you the distance. It's not going to see your goals, especially you start measuring those goals out 3, 4, 5, 6 years. All right. You're not getting there with just motivation. There's no way, right? If motivation, you know, if it's got 90 days in it, I'd be surprised. Right. So below that, then what do we need to do? What do we need to start to really think about to design success in our lives? What do we need to include? Right. So we've kind of been talking about this the last few weeks and certain things. So things like mindset, things like flow, things like aligning your energy between your body and your emotions and getting, you know, figuring out what works for you. Right. I would, you know, when I ask these questions, sometimes I'm surprised at how many people are unaware of what those triggers are. Right. Or can't explain them. Right. So again, if I ask somebody, you know, what do you do when you're really frustrated? What do you do when you're really, like, you're pissed off? Like, how does that energy, how does that manifest, right? Are you holding it in? Are you letting it out on other people? Like, where is that coming out, right? And ask yourself this, when you're frustrated or you're overwhelmed or you're, you know, you name it, any emotion, how are we discharging that? How are we not letting that affect our center? Does anybody have a method that they use to do that?
Yeah, I go
The
right
kid?
in the middle of my office and I just start yelling.
Okay. That's helpful.
I go to
I'm
bed.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I usually start cursing under my breath
Okay.
so no one else hears me.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
recognize that it's like nonstop things are coming at me. I recognize if it's me that's the problem,
Right.
and I put myself to bed early because apparently I need more sleep.
Okay. So, how many of you are in control of your thoughts?
Somewhat.
All right. So I learned this a long time ago. In terms of like, if I'm feeling something, rather than like not questioning the feeling, I question the thoughts. All right. What thoughts are making me feel that way? Because if there's anything I can tell you now is that we are not our thoughts. The thoughts are a thing that happen, but we are not our thoughts. All right. And we can either let our thoughts control us or we can control them. So it's as simple as this. When I'm feeling anxious, I know that that's not a feeling that's going to help me get towards my goal and my motivation. All right. I know that it's really important that if I'm feeling super overwhelmed or anxious, that I got to think about the thoughts that have got me to that place. What is it that's getting me worked up in that way? All right. And then discharge it. Again, getting it back to a neutral point. So again, how many people maybe are coming into your world, all right, that are creating this imbalance and you don't even know it. All right. Those thoughts come through our head, and the thought it can be lightning fast, right? It can come and go. We're not meant to remember them either. Right. So what are they there for? What do they do for us? How do they serve us? Important questions. You ever thought about that? Anybody here ever thought about where thoughts come from and like why you think that the way that you do? I'm sure
So
we all have.
I think thoughts, like when we have the similar thought over and over is we kind of have program ourselves.
Bingo. Yes.
And we're living in a program. That's the thing that I kind of start understanding in the last summer or so, after doing a lot of meditation and understanding those feelings, right? So I got a lot of traumas in my life, childhood bullshit. And a lot of my thoughts are programs, based on previous experience in life and feelings, right? So the goal is, for me is, being conscious and aware of that thought, number one, right? What's the feeling I have there? And trying to find a way to, feeling a different way at that moment, right? So recognizing that you got that feeling, but hey, every time that you can recognize that you have a feeling and this is not the right state of mind that you should have, it's reprogramming yourself.
100%.
Every time that you tell yourself, like, hey man, this thought is not right, I want to change my state of mind right now, you're just starting to reprogram yourself. Because the study and the learning of, let's say, Joe Dispenza is like, we should be living in our own body within, not without. So every time that we have a reaction is something that is coming from external, right? Not
Totally.
within. So if you're in love, totally in love with you, totally worthy, and you embrace, everything that you are, basically these external things have no power on you. So why would you give power to someone else that did something to you or a different event? Right?
And
So that's kind of my thought on that.
totally.
That's
And
awesome.
I am in alignment with you 100% on that. And again, in terms of having control of your thoughts, you kind of said it there, right? So thoughts are connected to emotions and feelings. There is a physiological reaction to all the thoughts that are going off in your head. So how many of us are having thoughts and programs that aren't ours? When you start to question this, for a good example, most people that I encounter, most trades guys as well, have a problem saying no. Do you know where that thought comes from and where that programming comes from? Think about when you were a kid and you went to school. What did they teach us? Hey, don't talk back to authority. Don't say no to your parents. Like, all that was programmed into our heads so that until we question that and until we really put our purpose behind it. So like, again, is saying yes serving your purpose, and is that in line with your core values? I bet you most of you will say no, right? So being a yes person and saying yes to everything is not. If I'm a leader and if I'm, if I'm practicing boundaries, all right, and my core values and, my purpose is to, contribute to the community, all right, how can you do that when all you say is yes? Right? That means you're controlled by someone else, right? And again, those programs come from a place way before we even understood our thoughts. They were put there to control, right? We were taught those things so that we could be controlled. All right. And that's the most powerful thing when you really realize is like when you start to question those thoughts and again, the emotions and the feelings, it becomes very, very obvious where you've been misled and you're misleading yourself. And I think all human beings, we all have enormous power, enormous capability. We all have, such unbelievable gifts. All right. What stands between us and, living in those every day and feeling powerful and feeling, top of our game is all of those thoughts, all that garbage that's in there circling around, that's moving you away from your purpose, moving you away from the things that matter to you. And you may think that it's motivation. You may think that, I'm lazy, or maybe, you've told yourself a whole bunch of negative things on top of that. There's all types of reasons why. But when we get down to the core of it, when we get down to like, again, let's say the atom level, all right, it all comes back to what we've been told. It's what we believe or what's subconscious in our brains that create those chemical reactions in our body that make us feel a certain way, right? So if you're walking around depressed, all right, again, I know this is a gray area, and I mean there is clinically depressed, so I won't try to go over that boundary. But if you're walking around depressed, it means that something's happened in your past, all right, because you're dwelling on the past. That's a definition of depression, all right, that's pushing you away from your why, your purpose. All right. If we were all in line and we felt like we were living to our purpose every single day, how could those thoughts come into our brains? How do we fall out of that? Think about it, right? So like, again, if you could ask yourself, like, my goal was to be, this fit and, spend this much time with my family, and like all that's possible. All of that is possible. We all know that, right? If we just took the action. If we just did the thing, we went to the gym, we all know these things are supposed to be done, right? And inside, that's the person we want to be. That's like, again, but we're not exactly clear why. That's the other side of this, right? And then what happens is the thoughts get in and the feelings get in, all right? And they mislead us away from what it is that we're trying to achieve, right? And whether that be a big goal, that be a little goal. And myself personally, I've moved away from the big goals. I set my compass that direction, but I'm only focusing on the day ahead. I'm only focusing on the week ahead. All right. I give myself a permission to not have good days. I give myself permission to miss targets. All right. But I know that my discipline in what I do on the day-to-day basis, I'm not, I have time scheduled for my kids. I have time scheduled for my health. I have time scheduled. So no matter what, and it's not difficult. It's not things that I hate doing. I'm not just I'm not just making my life miserable, right? I'm not going to the gym for 6 hours a day. Like, I'm not torturing myself or just focusing on one thing. I'm including all of it, right? And it's small steps, small actions, little tiny adjustments that you make regularly that make the biggest difference in the world, right? So I made a post this week. I'm not sure if anybody caught it, but I mean, adding up what a 1% improvement on a day-to-day basis would actually mean in your life, right? So you would not be able to see it very well over, a week, a month, maybe not 100 days. But when you get to the end of a year by improving something 1%, that means just consciously doing it. So I'll give you the best example that I can possibly give you. one of the fears that I've had that's a part of my why is I had a rough childhood growing up where I was definitely not connected to parents. And my biggest fear is being that I won't connect with my kids and that I'm going to bring that to my kids' relationship. So what I did proactively is I went and got a parent coach, and I've been doing like connected parenting. All right. And it was really, really important to me. And I had to work very, very hard because of programming. You know, men are supposed to be vulnerable and all of those things. Well, when you have little girls, that's not true. That programming was a lie, and it's still a lie. And I think a lot of contractors are being told that, and then they wonder why their wives are leaving them. You have no, like, you're not connecting as a human being, right? Makes no sense. Like, how long can somebody that craves your attention and, you know, a connection with you go without having that? But then society tells us to be men. Shut up and don't show your feelings. You're supposed to be tough and stoic. That's how is that work? Right? So by questioning that thought, like questioning that program, because it's very much in me, right? I'm a roofer. Like, I mean, a lot of it is programmed into me at a very early age about being tough and, you know, boys don't cry, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is bullshit. And it makes you a weak person. It makes you small. It makes you very small to the people around you. And if you get to the end of your life and you realize that, hey, I was tough, I paid all the bills, I did all, like, that's not being a man to me. And like that, contrary to what I'm sure a lot of men are walking around with that kind of programming in their head, saying, yeah, you just have to be tough, you have to be the breadwinner, you've got to be all of these things. Okay. But they don't put the most important thing first. You have to be a human being. You have to be a loving, caring human being that connects with the people that you love. Where is that being talked about? Right? Why is that not a part of culture and explaining it to men why it's important to practice those things, right? So then we live with this programming in our minds and our heads, all right? And again, the worst thing is you live up to it, right? Again, you know, what happens then? Is that really what you think life should be? Like, if you just stay non-vulnerable and being tough, all right, but your value is family, how do those two things go together? What's the outcome going to look like? It's not. And this is what exactly I'm trying to explain to everyone to start to really get to that purpose. What is my purpose here? What are the things that I'm going to look back upon and be proud of, and like that I feel whole doing? All right. That I feel like, again, finding flow, like all those things. That's what we're meant to do. That's what we're meant to live up to. And the more you can build living in your purpose into your day-to-day routine, the better and stronger you're going to become. All right. The more you're going to discover about yourself, and the discoveries about yourself, again, like, they're profound, right? And all that programming that we're pumped in, all the bullshit that gets fed to us day in and day out, that controls us as society. And that's all that can be explained for it. Why on earth, just logically, let's just think about this for a second. All right. How much of, you know, men have to be tough and, you know, we're not supposed to be vulnerable is perpetrated in media? How much of it is in movies? How much of it's everywhere we go telling us that message? Who do you think's behind those messages? And what would be the purpose of them telling us that, knowing damn well that does not make a whole human being? Right? So again, when you start to get back to it, like, why do I act this way? Why do I behave this way? All right. Then you start to get yourself closer to to where you should be. And I think everybody needs to find, obviously, why they do things, right? If you can find why you do things and what the difference between the motivation is, you're one step closer to why, right? You're one step closer to that purpose that lies beneath, like in all of us, right? And
I know.
Yeah.
I would add also for the woman, right, that they are in the
100%.
contracting game, right?
Totally.
It's the same thing, right?
We're all being put into boxes. We're all being put into stereotypes that are meant to move us away from this. You know why? Because when we are closest to purpose and why, we're the most powerful. We're the most confident. We're the most dominant. We're the best at what we do. We make decisions on our own. We don't have fear, right? That's the problem. If you can't control people who are not full of fear, that aren't so misunderstand themselves, that they can't trust themselves. So I'll give you an example, right? Like, again, question this. Like, how many of you set out to do, like, to achieve a goal and failed to get to it? All of us, right? What happens the next time you go and try and do it? There's a lot of resistance, right? Yeah, absolutely. What happens again? But why is that programming there? Why are those thoughts there in the first place? Right? Why can some people go through life with literally, like, fearless, right? What do they know that we don't? What makes them so confident? What makes them have that natural energy to just make the right decisions at the right time? And again, you start studying guys that have really, like, done it in this life, and you're going to find they're very aligned with that why and that purpose, and that allows them to guide those decisions. And they're not taking in the thoughts. They're not taking in. They're shutting those things out, right? They're disciplined in what they allow into their lives and what they allow into their world, right? And again, the perfect example is if you hang around with trash, do you become trash? Yeah.
Mostly.
Most of the time. Yeah. We're naturally that way. We're herd animals, right? So we're influenced by that. So same thing goes though. Like, if you have the power to influence a group and turn it positive and bring up the energy and the vibration, all right? Because where's that come from? Where does that come from? Why does one person have it and not the other? And I'd like to think, again, maybe, and then, I'm not saying this is scientific. I'm saying this is my belief and where we can practically put these things into use. But I'm going to say that person's closer to the center of their why and their values. They're living to those values. Has anybody felt bad after completing their goals and targets in a day? Has anyone felt really, like, terrible? No, had no energy, just wanted to go home and cry? How about when they smashed through a goal?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, it happened. That's the problem, CEOs, right? I mean, like, we're so focused on goals and accomplishing all these tasks, and sometimes it's hard for us to give us a little tap on the shoulder, and that's a big problem, right? So there's people, they will just, like, there's millionaires there that have everything in life, and then they feel that they're missing something. You know what I mean?
Well, they are.
So,
They're not. And again, it comes back down. You can get to a goal and you can get to a target, and I can say this for sure, right? Like, I was anything but balanced and anything but disciplined getting to my first one. I got there basically by hard work and just doing the things that I wouldn't want to do now. That's for sure, right? Putting my head down, working, like, falling for the messaging that society. And I am telling you, I was like, I was miserable going through it. I was miserable at the end of it. It was traumatizing, literally, right? But to everybody else, it looked like it was success. But I couldn't be more unhappy with myself, with the world around me, with what I had gotten. And that's the biggest kind of risk here, is like, how many have even questioned if the direction you're going is your thought, like your belief in your purpose, right? So, I mean, in terms of roofing, like, the way I got into roofing wasn't really by choice. Like, I didn't wake up one morning going, oh man, I found my career. I know what I want to do the rest of my life. Right. And I think a lot of us are in situations like that. Now, I made the best of it and certainly, had motivation. All right. But when you start to look at where that motivation came from and why I ended up feeling the way I did at the end, it was very easy for me to kind of see. Right. So in correcting that now, and it's taken many, many years, for me to feel successful, all right, it's more about the daily battles. It's more about the things that I'm doing now that matter, right? I can't control the future. Like, let's be honest, I could get hit by a car, a lightning bolt right now. and spent all my time and energy going one place, leave this world with my kids hating me, my wife hating me, or like not having those things, what would it all be worth? Right? What would have been the point? What would, if there is another place, what would I look back on this as being? I think that's the pure definition of slavery, right? We were slaves to ourselves in a lot of these cases, right? So let's kind of get away from sort of that a little bit of that conversation. Let's kind of start to put this into practical sense, right? Like, what do we do so that we can feel like we're living more to this? All right. And I'm going to start off by saying that the first step that I would recommend for anyone is really identifying values. Okay. Like truly aligning yourself with values. All right. Once you've got clarity on that, and you know, I've talked a lot about it, it makes making the next decisions and setting the goals a lot clearer, right? So how many of you have actually ever like pulled out your own personal values? Has anybody here done this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
I mean, I've thought about it, but I've never actually sat down with a list or wrote out a list or checked any boxes like this.
So we're going to do that this week. This is one of the, again, a very, very core building block to all of this, right? So you have to start with values. Okay. You have to start with the things that it's like the rules to the game. Okay. What lines or boundaries are you not going to cross, or what things are you going to live by? All right. In order to get to that objective, because that changes the direction, right? If I was dishonest, all right, and you know, I didn't really value anything but money, oh, my pathway to getting rich would be a lot quicker in some cases, maybe not. But again, you could see that I wouldn't be considered a very good human being though, right? So how many of you people have encountered someone where they had no values, or they didn't practice any? You know what the more dangerous part in the energy zapper is when you haven't defined them and you let other people push the boundaries on them. So again, most of us can probably say that, you know, honesty is maybe a value. Okay. But then we're pushing ourselves into situations where it's hard to be honest, and we're not being honest. Right. But we know it's wrong. We know that we don't like when we lie.
Sometimes you can be too honest too.
Absolutely. Right.
That's me.
So, and here's the other thing. This is where the whole conversation started from, is I want you to really question, is that value yours? Or was it handed off to you or programmed into you? All right. That's the really powerful part of this exercise, is like, hey, like, okay, prove it, right? If your value is fun and, you know, how is that in every part of your day? Or how are you incorporating that in your life? Are you living to that value, right? Friendship. Are you living to that value? It's a yes or a no question. So again, if we don't question these things and really think about, are we living up to these things? Okay, then we have some work to do. Okay. Before we can find, you know, our center, our purpose, our why, and purpose is lived on a day-to-day basis. Okay. It starts with being aligned with these things, I think, in my opinion, right? This is the first kind of solid place that you're going to go to align yourself with, you know, finding that purpose. If you don't have values, we can all agree that you don't have a purpose, right? If you had no values, you were just flapping in the wind, nothing holding you to your actions or your behavior. Again, what kind of person would you be? How could you ever get to any place? How would that like change the way you think? Right? Pretty interesting stuff. And it has a very, very practical root in productivity and how we feel and energy and all of these things, is that when we're not in alignment with these things, all right, whether we can define them or communicate them well or not, all right, when we're not in alignment with these, it's hard to have that compass. Think about it as the needle inside. Make sense? Sivash, I see you have a hand up.
Yeah, I went to like Tony Robbins is pretty good at this stuff, right? The
Yeah.
values, right? And like sometimes we'll set goals like we'll value success, and like we'll go on Instagram and you want to drive a Porsche, and have your kids be happy with you all the time,
Yeah.
like that's what has to happen for you to be successful.
That's right.
So you internalize like rules. You're like, well, I need to make X amount of dollars to be successful. And then when that doesn't happen, you tell yourself you're not successful. And then you walk around feeling unsuccessful.
And you move further away from being successful.
But you just have less energy and you're like, it zaps your motivation and this and that. And now you're like, well, I'm not a success.
That's right. Well, and here's the other side of it that I think needs to be talked about more. Like, if we were to break it, like, I think that when most people set goals, they haven't really questioned why they've set that goal. Why is that important to them? And why does it matter? Okay. And that's the most dangerous thing in the world. Like, if you haven't really explored these why questions and like understanding yourself, right? I'll give you a fantastic example. All right. You could be taking a medication, for example, that's changing your thought pattern. You think that there's a whole bunch of examples, Dexedrine, Ritalins, all these kind of medications. You put somebody on it and their thoughts are going to change completely. And what they feel and think in that moment, totally different. Take them off of it, like night and day. All right. Some of us call it ADD. We call it a whole bunch of different things, but really when we break it down, let's think about it. Like, how does this change things? Right. So if I wanted to connect more with my kids, I'm just going to use this as an example. It must sound like a broken record, but I'm not going to go through setting these big long goals. I'm not going to go through like having this 6-year plan of how I'm going to do it. No, I'm going to take action. And the reason I was able to take action so quickly and so precisely and determined was because I knew it aligned with my values. Like, that is totally within the things that I want in my life. That is like, I can check that box off and I feel great about it. All right. It's what drives me. And again, now I can track it on a day-to-day basis. I can say, did I do my 15 minutes in the morning? And did I do my 15 minutes at night? I did. Every day I'm checking it off. All right. I know I'm living in alignment with getting to that place. And again, it didn't start off like, we can have those playtimes with a 2-year-old all you want. You won't know that connection for, until they're conscious enough to really, tell you or communicate that to you. All right. Well, that's not true. I'm the default parent now, but again, really the investment of it now is important to me because I don't want my kids to grow up feeling the way I do about my parents. Right. So that to me is not something you're just going to it's not going to happen in one big glorious like mass explosion. You're not just going to do that in one shot. That has to be every day, every opportunity, like consistent. All right. So, but how easy would it be if I didn't have a system in place to let those things fall aside?
And
right?
these ones,
Hold on
I
a
have
sec.
like this package of like the other ones.
Can't find that. Hold on. So let's kind of take this to today's homework that I want you guys to go through is the values. All right. Super easy exercise. It's going to take you like 10 to 15 minutes. Let's get the first step. Like before you set a goal, before you set your compass, you got to know what the rules are. You got to know, again, you don't even need to know why yet. All right. But you got to know the things that you want to be and that you are prepared to stand by. All right. Those things are major in making decisions towards goals, right? Because if something's going to consistently force you to live outside of a value to get to a place, by the time you get there, you're not, well, first of all, you won't have the energy and the sustained motivation to begin with. If you're every day being forced to push an actual value, all right, and live beyond it. So again, if you had to go rob banks every day to get it, and your values are integrity and honesty, well, that's not going to work out so well, is it? Right? You're probably going to be pretty bad at it too. So let's not set ourselves up for that. Let's set ourselves up by setting the goals from where they matter most, right? And like I said, don't set goals for monetary things, like, physical things even. I don't, when I was younger, absolutely, it was about making money. And like, I found out very quickly that that's a terrible, terrible way to go, right? Now, there are some people, with the exception that is actually their, like, that gives them energy and like, so be it, but it's not me. All right. It was never me. And like, I always found that every time I would chase that it created more problems in my life, right? It moved me further away from being happy, further away from feeling like I'm living my purpose every day. Right. So I'm really interested to see how many of you guys can actually go through this and, identify with what your core values are. And next week we're going to be, the week following and in our workshop next week, we're going to be talking about how to set like actual goals and turn those into routines and habits. All right. So taking all this stuff we've been talking about and building like a absolutely bulletproof, daily energy ritual, an absolutely bulletproof, core plan that when you get to the goal, when you get to the target, all right, you're full of energy, you're full of life, you're excited to be there, all right, and it makes it easy to take the next and the next step, all right, instead of looking at the big, overwhelming goal up here and never ever getting to it, right, never giving ourselves a chance to get to it. Cool.
Where is this document?
Yeah, so this document, actually, I'll download and give it to all of you guys right now. Hold on, it's yeah, so if you go into
It's Time Master, isn't it, Jay?
yeah, it's Time Master Pro. Just send me a message if you haven't got the access for it. It's kind of stupid how they do it, but in Time Master Pro, it's right in there, and I'm going to drop it into the chat right now. Okay. So again, guys, this is like a super easy, doesn't take very long to actually do. And it's going to move you one point closer to what we're heading towards. And it does get more practical, by the way. This has got a lot to do with productivity, but I feel like if I don't touch on these things, then I'll be letting everybody down.
So if you're in Time Master, where is it exactly?
It's the values and goals.
Values. I don't see that.
Let me pull that up. Hold on.
Values and outcomes?
It's right at the bottom. And it's got your values list. Sorry.
Mine just
scroll right to the bottom.
One says strategic delegation.
No. So you scroll down right there. So here's the values.
I think it's the setting value-based goals.
That's right.
Yeah. And then scroll to the bottom for the PDF.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the
Setting value-based goals is right here.
Goal setting and motivation. No, I don't see it.
Here's the PDF. Okay.
I don't have access to that one, Jay.
Okay, I'll put you on it. There's still a few people that don't got it, but I put the exercise in the chat there.
Yeah.
So if you guys open it up. Okay. So it's again, these are like reflective things, but before you can actually, build a daily ritual or daily plan, build a calendar schedule that you're going to stick to. All right. It's super important you go through these things because you'll be amazed at like what you uncover and how much it's going to help you with, getting clarity and certainty about where you want to be, right? Business, health, wherever, it doesn't matter. These are all like bedrock kind of fundamental things that we want to be doing if we want to get the best results out of it. Okay, so
quick question.
Sure.
Just, I don't know, might be a little off topic, but going through this stuff, do you find that this changes your 16 personalities result?
It hasn't for me. I could see how it could for some. I've been doing it for like quite a while, and like for me, it's all about, again, coming back to productivity, right? So it all leads to, but if you don't ask these questions, if you don't, you know, start to question some of these things, and the I guess, you know, Johnny, I don't know if we were having a conversation about this, and he flat out told me like he avoids it. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I'd love to get it more. He's like, and again, I could understand where it would, you know, probably hit some nerves. And I was nervous about doing, you know, this kind of discussion, because absolutely, like what happens when you figure out that you're not in line with the values and where you want to be in your purpose? That can create a lot of change, right? It should anyways. So, but still, nonetheless, I'd rather make whole people than, you know, empty people chasing a empty result. So yeah, I'd be interested. Try it out. Take your 16 personalities and see if it changes you. Very cool. All right, guys. We'll chat soon. And remember, next week is the workshop. Lots of really practical. We'll be away from this. I wanted to give you guys this before the bigger group. Next week will be all productivity. Okay. All right. Bye for now.
Thanks,
Thank you.
James. See ya.